Religious freedoms. This is the first two clauses of the First Amendment, and it encompasses freedom from and freedom to practice religion. The idea of the First Amendment, the two clauses that start it, the free exercise and the Establishment Clause, comes from Thomas Jefferson's idea of a wall of separation. In the first Virginia Statute of Religious Freedoms, excuse me, Jefferson wrote, "Believing with you that your religion is a matter which lies solely between man and his God, that he owes account to no one other than for his faith and his worship, that the legitimate powers of government reach actions only and not opinions, I contemplate with sovereign reverence that act of the whole American people which declared that their legislators should make no laws respecting an establishment or prohibiting free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state." So we took these two ideas, the freedom from practicing a religion, or the freedom of establishing a religion, and the free exercise of any religion. We took those ideas out of Thomas Jefferson's Virginia Statute of Religious Freedom, and we incorporated them into the First Amendment. Now, what wall of separation means is that there will be a separation of government laws and religious affairs. This was important to the framers because the framers weren't necessarily all Christian, and this country was established partly by people who wanted to escape religious persecution. In any cases determining whether or not the government is becoming too involved, limiting or helping a religion or the practice thereof, the Supreme Court of the United States generally allows people to practice their religion, but does not allow people to push their religious beliefs unwillingly on other people. Major questions that come up when it comes to separation of church and state and government involvement is, how should we depict God in public or on government land, if at all? Like, should you be able to put the Ten Commandments in a government courtroom? Should there be a Christmas tree in your school? Okay. Public funding of parochial schools, and parochial schools are private religious schools. Should taxpayer dollars go to help buy things in parochial schools? Should we include religion in a public school's curriculum? Like, should there be an evolution versus creation based science class? Should we be able to have a Bible studies class? Prayer at graduation, like, can you be prayed to by an adult? Seasonal religious displays, again, that goes back to God in public. Like, should you be able to have a nativity scene on the firehouse lawn? Okay. School vouchers. And vouchers, probably a new idea to you. A voucher is a coupon that your parent could get to send you to a parochial school. And they would get that coupon from the government, and you would get that coupon if you lived in a school district whose schools were failing. Okay. We're going to start with the Establishment Clause. It's the one that pops up most common, and it is the first one. The definition of the Establishment Clause is that the First Amendment prohibits Congress from making laws creating, supporting, or promoting an official national religion. So Congress can't make Christianity our religion. Congress can't promote Christianity by giving them particular amounts of money. And then there's a question that the Supreme Court has to decide. In making sure that you are separating the activities of church and the activities of your state or government, Supreme Court has determined whether or not we should play favorites or not play favorites or not get involved in religion at all. So that would be, is it better to support all religious activity equally or ignore them altogether? And the Supreme Court has had decisions that do both. There are three factors of government involvement questioned by the Supreme Court when it comes to government and religion. How involved is the government? If the government's really not all that involved, then the Supreme Court might allow the activity to occur. If government officials aren't making decisions for the religion, the government might be involved. And if the government isn't financing the promotion of a religion, then the government might be able to give money to a parochial school. And we'll look at all of those questions. The number one case dealing with religion and government is Lemon versus Kurtzman, heard in 1971. It's not the first one, but it is a huge landmark case dealing with government and money to religious institutions. The Lemon test was established in Lemon versus Kurtzman, and it questions how government can give money and not be involved in a religious decision made by a church. In this case, the federal government was, the state government was giving a tax break or a free ride on public buses to kids who were heading to a religious school. The people who were sending their kids to public school said that wasn't fair. You shouldn't be able to give a tax break to people who were sending, or a coupon to people who are sending their kids to a public or a private school on public buses. They should have to pay. It was their choice to send their kid to a private school. In this case, the Supreme Court answered the question, could the government give money and not be involved in religious decisions, by saying yes, but it has to follow, the actions of the government have to follow a Lemon test. So if the government is going to give money, it has to be secular or non-religious in nature. The government has to take a neutral stance, because the spending can't go to anything that will advance a religion. So if you were getting government money to a parochial school, it would have to be something like textbooks, math textbooks. But you couldn't spend government money on paying a nun to teach a Catholic school. It has to be non-religious money in general. And the government cannot have any entanglements. The government can't get too involved in how the money is spent. So the big overarching theme of the Lemon test is that the government can give money to a church or a religious school. They just can't tell the church or the religious school how to spend it, and they can't tell the church or the religious school what to spend it on, and they can't tell them, or the church can't spend the money on anything religious. Sorry. Okay, Establishment Clause. Again, schools seem to be the battleground for the Establishment Clause because they are a huge institution with lots of individuals that go through there, and the local and state governments spend millions of dollars on financing public schools every year. So religion in schools does become the battleground for the Establishment Clause. Okay. Oh, sorry. One of the major cases dealing with the Establishment Clause in school deals with prayer in school, and it's Engel versus Vital, which was in 1962. Okay. Basically what Engel versus Vital established is that you can't begin the day with a teacher-led prayer. Also, with that precedent set in Engel versus Vital, other cases have come up that says coaches can't pray to you. You can't be prayed to at graduation, but you do have the right of a moment of silence. But that moment of silence cannot have a teacher-led prayer during that time. Okay, symbols. Symbols in schools, you cannot have symbols open and on display. Like I technically can't have a crucifix or a cross in the front of the classroom. The pledge. Under God is okay, Under God is okay because it is custom and tradition. But the pledge actually has other issues. Pledging allegiance to a flag actually violates other people's religion. So you can't force a child to say the Pledge of Allegiance. But you do have a pledge, and it's okay that it says one nation under God. So if you were a Jehovah's Witness, it is strictly against your religion to pledge allegiance to something other than Jehovah. So you cannot, as a teacher, force a child to say the pledge. Evolution. It has been determined in this country that we will teach evolution as a standard, but if we want information, or if you want information on creation myths or creationism or intelligent design, then we have to help you get the information. Vouchers. Again, vouchers. If a public school can't provide you an adequate education, and you can prove that the public school can't provide you an adequate education, generally through SOL scores, then the state can provide you with a coupon or state funding to send your kid to a private religious school. Tax exemptions. Church property is tax-free. The reason why is because you don't want to get entangled in a discussion about why are you charging the church down the street a higher tax rate than the church that is in the middle of the country. Is it because the one in the middle of the country is a Southern Baptist church and you happen to be Southern Baptist? So the easiest thing to do is say, forget it. All churches, no taxes. Religious symbols. Again, religious symbols have to follow two of their own, or one of their own tests. If the religious symbol is reasonable, or a rational person says that the symbol doesn't overtly support religion, then this symbol can stay. But if a rational person says that the symbol overtly supports one religion over another, then the symbol that might be in the government building has to be removed. So it's pretty much a given that you can't have a cross or maybe the Ten Commandments, but you could kind of get away with a Christmas tree as long as that Christmas tree doesn't have anything specific on it, like a star or an angel. Judges' views. There are two views that judges can take. You have the preferential test, and that is a test where the judge believes that you should give allowances to all religions. So that a preferential test would be like, all right, if you're gonna have a cross, then have a menorah and have a celebration for Kwanzaa and do all, cover all of the religions. But if you're gonna promote one, then promote them all. So that's a preferential test. The other take on it is a strict separation. It's none. Don't have any. Okay. The last clause in the First Amendment dealing with religion is the Free Exercise Clause. The definition of this. The Free Exercise Clause gives you the right to practice or not practice any religion. The key is that you can't infringe on the beliefs of people. If somebody wants to practice voodoo, then you can't stop them. If somebody wants to be a Southern Baptist, you can't stop them. If somebody wants to be a Mormon, you can't stop them. When you have problems when you're practicing a religion is when you infringe upon other people or you harm other people. So the government can limit your religious behavior if it violates or hurts somebody else's rights. Now, there have been a couple of instances where the government has suppressed your ability to practice your religion because it has hurt somebody. One of the cases where the government has limited somebody practicing their religion is Reynolds versus the U.S., depicted in this cartoon over here. Reynolds versus U.S. is about a fundamentalist Latter-day Saint who believed in plural marriage, and he said, and he was prosecuted for having multiple wives. And he said, "This is my religion, this is my religious beliefs, and I should be able to conduct my religion the way that I feel fit." But the government determined that not all of the women that are in plural marriages have chosen that, and that sometimes it's forced or sometimes the women are too young to be married. So the federal government says you cannot have multiple marriages. Um, you can't have multiple marriages even if it's part of your religious practice. Wisconsin versus Yoder. It is a practice of the Amish for their kids to stay out of school after 8th grade in order to go work on the farm and to acquire those skills. And the federal government says that's fine. As part of their religion, they get what they need in order to live on their Amish farms after 8th grade. Employee Division of Oregon versus Smith wasn't quite decided by the Supreme Court. They kind of threw it back at Oregon, but the case was about smoking a peace pipe and smoking a hallucinogenic drug in a peace pipe as part of a Native American religious practice. And the Employment Division of Oregon denied somebody the right to unemployment because they were fired for not passing a drug test because they were Native American and they were consuming drugs as part of a Native American ritual. And um, the Supreme Court basically decided that it was up to the states to determine whether or not they would allow for unemployment and insurance based or unemployment benefits based on that. Church of Leukemia Baba Blue Eye versus the city of Hialeah, Florida. This was about a Santa Rita church who were slaughtering pigs within the confines of a neighborhood, and the neighbors were complaining because the pigs were squealing. And the Supreme Court said, no, just because it's part of your religion to kill pigs, you still can't disturb other people's rights and peace as part of your religious ritual. And that's it for freedom of religion.